Today marks 7 years since Abby Williams and Libby German disappeared in Delphi. The teen girls went for a walk along the Monon High Bridge Trail and never returned. Their bodies were discovered the next day, February 14th, 2017.
It's been 7 years now since Abby Williams and Libby German were taken and their lives were lost. There's been so much focus lately on what's going on with the case, all the craziness. But today needs to be about the girls and about those around them whose lives have been forever changed.
Now this is Abigail Williams and this is Libby German. They both lived in Delphi. They were in middle school. Abby was actually 13 and Libby was 14. Libby's full name was Liberty German and Abby's full name is Abigail Williams. The girls met in school and they were best friends. They actually both played the saxophone in the school band together, and that was something that brought them really close together. And they also played a variety of sports together, such as volleyball, and are actually going to be on the same softball team that year. Both of the girls were considered to be very close with their families. Libby was known to be a lot more outgoing than Abby was. Abby was very quiet and reserved, while Libby was a lot more outspoken and outgoing. And in that way, they complemented each other and they were best friends. They both were really creative, really loved to do arts and crafts. The night before this all happened, they actually spent the evening painting together.
Well, I can start out with saying both girls were amazing. Everybody loved being around them. They were friends with so many different people. Their personalities were very different, but because of that, they were so close, and it was such an amazing bond to watch them grow as friends together. So Libby was involved in everything she could possibly be involved in. She did every single sport that Delphi ever let you do. Volleyball, soccer, swimming, softball, and then on top of that, she was in the band. She loved art. She was just an all-around great person. And Abby was the same way. She loved art and band and sports. Her and Libby were in volleyball together and was later going to play softball with Libby. Libby was more of an outgoing person. She loved spending time with her friends and family. She loved going on rides at the park, and she loved playing with whoever it was. She loved children, she loved adults, she just loved people. That's how she was raised. That's how she became the amazing woman that she was turning into. Abby was a saxophone player. She loved volleyball. She spent a lot of time with her family. She loved her family and her cat. She was a very outdoorsy kind of person, and that's kind of how both girls were too. One thing that both girls really shared was photography and art. So the night before, they were actually painting in their room after having a girls' night. We all kind of hung out downstairs. We were watching movies with some of my friends, and it was just a really good night. And that's kind of how it always was when Abby was over.
Mike Patty remembers his granddaughter, Libby German, and her friend, Abby Williams, as two close friends who enjoyed the outdoors.
Our girls were excited about the upcoming softball season. Just the day before all this happened, they had their equipment out playing catch, working on their batting in the backyard, but they'll never get to play a single inning again.
I believe Abigail made our world a better place. Libby was a person that made it a point to make people feel good.
She smiled all the time. All the time.
The mother who shares what justice will look like for Abby and Libby.
She was always in the middle of something, and it was always in a minute. Give me another minute. I'll do it in a minute.
Libby dreamed of becoming a science teacher. She was also interested in solving crimes or finding cures. Her curiosity in the sciences was serious business. She attended several classes up the road at Purdue University. 14-year-old Libby loved the outdoors. And indoors, she was known for her chocolate chip cookies.
She was our baker. She could throw together a batch of cookies like nobody. She'd come in, have it done in half an hour or so, have cookies laid out for everybody to eat the rest of the night.
These days, Libby's paintings, Libby's photography, Libby's skills on first base are sources of comfort. Then there's the use of sticky notes, another look into her soul.
She left me one day a note in my sun visor. I love you. Thank you for all you do for me and Kelsey. She made Christmas gifts for some of her teachers. Just kind of cute. She used, for her science teacher, she used the element table and made little blocks and spelled out teacher for her teacher.
That's cool.
Yeah, she called me one day. I'd given her some money for some item at school or function. It was probably a $10 bill or something. So she called me up and said, Grandpa, with the change, can I give it to somebody else or somebody who needs something here at school? And I said, well, sure, sure you can. So that's just the way she worked.
Abby and Libby did a lot together. Both girls loved music. They played the alto saxophone in their middle school band. Both loved photography and painting. The girls were set to play softball. Both shared a special friendship. Now let's talk about Abby. Her favorite question, is there anything I can do to help? It's that caring and joyful spirit that lets her mother smile. Anna Williams shared her passion for photography with her daughter Abby. The 13-year-old also loved arts and crafts, helping build this birdhouse and knitting these hats for newborns with her Aunt Maggie.
She loved to make things to give people. She loved to just be around people.
That included her volleyball teammates. She also planned on playing softball for the first time this year. Grandpa Cliff was so excited, he drove down from Michigan to take her shopping for the new gear.
This is Abby's kitty Bongo.
Yeah, and she named him.
Yes, she did.
And Abby convinced her grandparents and mom, who's allergic to cats, to let the stray stay.
So that morning, they actually helped my grandma with some business stuff, and they had painted a little bit. And my dad had made them breakfast that morning. And while I was getting ready, Libby came upstairs and asked me what I was doing that day. And when I told her I had to work and I was going to Chase's house, I told her I couldn't go with her, but she wanted me to take her. And so I told her no, not that day, maybe another day. A little while later, I had told her that I would take her if she could get a ride home. And Grandma said yes. So she was asking Grandma and she was asking my dad, and they had both said it was okay and that my dad would pick her up later. And so that's kind of what led up to her going, was the fact that they wanted to do something on their day off. They just wanted to do something fun. They wanted to get out of the house. They didn't want to be there all stuck in the house on the day off of school. It was a nice day. And we were looking underneath the bridge, and as soon as we'd gotten back to the private drive, somebody yelled up the hill that they'd found a shoe. And knowing that I dropped the girls off and I remembered what they were wearing, I knew exactly what shoes my sister and Abby were both wearing. So as soon as they yelled up what type of shoe it was, I knew exactly whose it was. It wasn't long after they told us that they'd found the shoe that a searcher found the bodies of the girls.
The girls' bodies were found about a half mile from the bridge and were also found on the edge of a private property line.
I was totally defeated. That morning, I had actually packed a bag with a granola bars and a blanket in them, hoping that the girls would need them. They would be so happy to have a granola bar after being outside all night. So after that, the experience is very blurry. I don't remember much up until the funeral, to be honest.
I don't know exactly what happened out there that day, but I imagine there was probably an opportunity for one or both to separate and try to make a break different ways. But those girls loved each other. They were good friends. Neither one of them left each other's side. Both those girls are heroes in my book.
And now the family's pain, immeasurable, following the murder of Abby and her friend Libby near the bridge they both loved. Every morning when that sun rises, how do you keep going in light of all of this?
It's the stories and the pictures. It's the funny stuff. You know, the things that we've said and done throughout the years.
Not far from here, the grandparents of 13-year-old Abby Williams are also heartbroken. Papa and Mima, as Abby called them, keep her belongings just where she left them.
Her things are still here. We just can't. We can't erase her from our lives, and we don't want to. We treasure her coat hanging on the coat hook and her shoes on the shoe rack, and her bedroom is just the way she left it. Because she may have walked out the door, but she's here with us.
We used to be able to go to the trails whenever we wanted and not be scared that something was going to happen. We were able to leave our doors unlocked and not be scared that somebody was going to come in and rob us. We were not worried about not having a gun in the house. It was just not a scary place to live. And I think now, after the girls, it's just gotten a lot scarier for people to live there. But I remember laying in my bed crying, and I remember my grandparents crying together. And I remember very vividly the day that I asked my grandparents if we could move my bed into their bedroom, because I couldn't sleep knowing that there was somebody out there. And I wasn't able to talk to anyone about it. I was scared to talk to my grandparents. I was scared to talk to any of my family, really. And I think that's mainly because I knew they were hurting too. Trying to go through something when everybody around you is hurting too. You don't want them to hurt like you're hurting. And so you just keep quiet. But for our case, the thing that drives me most is my sister. Sometimes I think back of like fights that we got into, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have been such a bad sister. I shouldn't have been so mean to her. I shouldn't have said no so many times to taking her to McDonald's to get french fries. I should have just taken her to the movies. I should have just went to that game. I should have just went to High Bridge with her that day. All of these things that go through your brain, and you're like, wow, I should have just been a better sister, and this wouldn't have happened. And that feeling right there, that feeling of the what if that hits you so hard every day, that is what drives me to keep going.
We pray every day that we'll have peace someday.